into geology again, and this week we're going to be learning about igneous rocks. So for anyone who remembers back to their primary school science, igneous rocks were also called the first rocks because they're rocks that are formed from magma and lava. So they're the very first rocks to form in what is the rock cycle, and the other rocks are derivatives of those rocks themselves. So our learning goals for this week are to be able to talk to me about what minerals are and how they're the basic building blocks of rocks, be able to talk to me about crystalline structure of rocks and how crystals form in rocks. You also need to be able to talk to me about the different types of igneous rocks, specifically pertaining to the Glasshouse Mountains, so the different types of igneous rocks that we find around this area. Now, the other big thing we're going to be doing this week is we're going to be working on skills. We're going to be doing a a prac called the Investigating Crystals prac, and you're going to be practicing 3 skills there: how to write a hypothesis, how to write your discussion, and how to write an evaluation. You practiced that in last term's work. You're going to be trying to improve on those skills. The other thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at rocks from the Glasshouse Mountains and comparing them to what you know about rocks and trying to investigate where different igneous rocks are found around the Glasshouse Mountains and what type of igneous rock they are, because that tells us a little about their history. So success criteria, you should be able to talk to me about the different types of minerals that you can find in rocks, just basically. You must be able to use a key to identify the different types of igneous rocks. You also need to be able to tell me what the characteristics of the 2 types of igneous rocks are, what their physical characteristics are, and be able to use a key, a basic key, to identify them. If I give you a little table that says this is how you identify this type and this is how you identify this type, you should be able to use that key to go, okay, here's a picture of a igneous rock, what type of rock is it? And use the key to identify it. The other thing I really want you to be able to talk to me about are the environmental conditions that surround or contribute to the characteristics that you find in different igneous rocks. You're going to be going into the temperature conditions in our Investigating Crystals prac, how the temperature at which they're cooled affects the crystalline structure of the rock. So you need to be able to talk to me about how environment influences how rock structure is. And you're also going to be talking to me about if we see these different rocks around the Glasshouse Mountains. So it might be a certain type of rock like basalt, and you can position it in Mount Tibrogargan and say, well, I'm finding basalt here and here and here, and we'll be relating to a map on that. What does that mean about what's happened? Like, how do you know basalt is formed? What does that tell you about what happened when that lava came out of that mountain to form that rock? You basically need to be able to use rocks and their identity and the data to start to tell a little bit of the story of the Glasshouse Mountains. Were those rocks formed deep underground? Were they shot out of the top in an explosion? All that sort of stuff. You need to be able to talk to me about, here's this rock, here's its position, what does that tell me about the story in the Glasshouse Mountains? So to cover our activities this week, and I'd say a lot of these might actually get pushed into next week. We're going to actually take this a little bit at a time. You, again, have an introductory quiz, and there's also an extension quiz if you pass the first one that's going to assign different lessons to you. Do that first. Next, you need to go and do the recommendations for those quizzes in those lessons there. One of those lessons for all of you will be the Investigating Crystals prac, and you're going to be completing a crystals report, Investigating Crystals report, and submitting it there. You're also then going to take a post quiz or an extension post quiz to set up your homework for next week. And last but not least, we're going to go on a little sort of field trip virtually of the Glasshouse Mountains and identify where different igneous rocks are found around the mountains, and then use that information to start to piece together a little bit of the story, the geological